The video which you're about to watch here describes how a dragonfly UFO works by means of a rotating magnetic field and three-phase power. Would you like to learn more about this? If so, then please watch the video and share it with your friends, and we can build this right now and go to the stars. Today we will very ambitiously study how the famous dragonfly-drone UFO works. And this has been photographed all around the world. The advantage of studying this device is we can see the inner workings of it, whereas for a normal UFO you don't know what's inside, like looking at a car going by and not knowing there's a gasoline piston engine. Now, we have a crop picture which tells us how it works from 2009. And you can see the spikes at the edge of the UFO here pretty well match the spikes at the crop picture. It shows like a UFO shape on the ground, rising up these steps and going into the air. And the loops at the center of the UFO match all those loops that go around the outside of the crop picture. And there's something about the right-hand rule, two fields crossing at a right-handed angle. And using north and south alternating magnetism, we get two flows of ions swirling out the bottom to give thrust. There's the UFO, two fields crossing through this little device, north-south, ions give thrust and it goes up in the air, step, 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 step. Now, at first it looks incomprehensible how this works, but if you imagine that each of these is an electromagnet, there are 9 of them, these big plates, and each of these is a current loop, and the others think stuff's just for balance, like a cat holding out its tail. It makes a lot of sense. This part here might be like the carburetor fuel injection to ionize the air. The conductive air comes in here and reacts with magnetic fields and current and makes invisible thrust coming out the bottom, just like sort of like a jet engine, but an electromagnetic jet engine. This is called in general Magnetoplasma-dynamics. And I'm going to talk about three-phase magnetoplasma-dynamics here. We have magnets like that in plates, magnetic field going one way, and that's like these plates. Current going across the other way between the plus and minus, that's like these loops, but they go at 90-degree angles. And thrust goes out the bottom to what's called the Lorentz force, as you'll see. The current has to be 90 degrees to the magnetic field. We can study a simple analog of this without having to have actual gas plasma using magneto-hydrodynamics in a little tank of water. You have a DC battery, attach it to two conductive plates, which are like the current loops, and here's your magnet. And the magnetic field goes that way, the current goes the other way, thrust comes out the bottom as both ions going that way or that way go downward. So what we want to do here is, that's fine in theory, to understand this UFO better, what we want to do is do some simple experiments to make sure we deduce the entire physics using just a tank of water and some green dye. And that's what we're going to do today. And it should be very instructive, and hopefully this will put us on the way to Mars. Tell Linda Moulton Howe, tell Elon Musk. Let's get going here, guys. I'm going to show you how to do it. For our first set of experiments, we're just going to have a little glass bowl filled with water from our swimming pool, diluted 1:4 with tap water, so the salt's not too high, it'll lower the current. Inside we have a black and a red wire coming from this simple DC power supply that'll go to 30 volts and go to 1 amp. We attach 2 little aluminium plates, one on the red wire, the other on the black wire, just like that. And we're going to take a fishing magnet and put that under the device. Next we're going to turn on the current and see what happens. When we turn on the current at 30 volts, you can see the water just pouring through these two little plates. 30 volts, 1 amp. Between the two little plates, we'll just put a little dye here so you can follow it more easily. See the dye rushing through. So we don't take very big pieces of aluminium to do this. Let's switch the current, see what happens. Now if we flip the current the other way, switch red and black wires, we can see the water is pouring through the opposite direction as evidenced by the motion of a die. Let's try some little bigger aluminium plates, see what happens. Here we can see the same effect with slightly larger aluminium plates. See, the dye just streams through very fast. Now we have current flowing through even larger plates. Look at that. That's 2 amps, 30 volts. Now if I put these plates close together, the current's faster. The plates further apart, the current's slower. Once again, if we reverse the current leads, then the current will run in the opposite direction. Next, if we want to reverse the flow of current through these aluminium sheets, we can not only change the red-black polarity of the diodes at the current supply, we can simply flip the magnet over, say from north red to south blue. Let's see how that works now. We're going to look at 2 aluminum plates of average size with the red facing up and see which way the current flows. And you can see it's streaming quite strongly from left to right down the device. We've got the south pole magnet up, the blue side up, and you can see the current is just pouring out the other end. So by flipping the magnet, we've reversed the polarity of magneto-hydrodynamics. To confirm, here it is with the north pole of the magnet up, and now you can see it streaming out the other end. In summary, using a simple DC power supply, we've learned the basics of magneto-hydrodynamics using little aluminum sheets and a magnet. These aluminium sheets can be of various lengths. It doesn't matter that much. The closer they are together, the faster the current goes through. If we flip the red to black polarity on the power supply, that'll make the current go one way or the other. This is pooled water diluted 1:4 with tap water. If we flip the polarity of the magnet from red to south, that will also change the direction in which it goes. Now this is the basic piston stroke of our Dragonfly drone engine. So if we don't understand this, we won't understand anything. Let's do it next with AC power rather than DC. Here we are with AC power, about 50 or 70 volts. And you can see the current is just pouring out quickly from right to left. Let's flip the polarity and see what happens next. First, we've reversed the leads going through both the electromagnet and the aluminum plates. And we see by doing that, it still goes from right to left when we reverse both of them at the same time. But if we shift only one of the leads, so the electromagnet goes 180 degrees out of phase with the plates, now you see the current goes very strongly from left to right. That's at 90 volts. So this is basically how the device works. What we have done so far is to explain how magneto-hydrodynamics or magnetoplasma-dynamics, when we use an ionized gas or salt water respectively, conductive fluid, conductive gas, works in terms of basic physics for a single stroke engine. We always have a magnetic field perpendicular to our electric current, and that creates thrust by the right hand rule in another direction. And here it is, magnetic field, current, thrust in the other direction. The current's always 90 degrees to the field. What if we could do it three-phase though, and have a whole ring of pistons, just like the 8 or 9 pistons you might have in a car. Typically 8 for a car. The UFO seems to use 9. If we come over here, we can see 9 electromagnets around the outside of the Dragonfly UFO, if we count carefully. And then we can see current loops inside. So every time a magnet here turns on, the current will turn on perpendicular to it. When that magnet turns on, those 2 current loops will turn on perpendicular. And then this part here might ionize the gas, so as it flows through, it'll be ionized air. It'll hit here, current will flow across, and it'll shoot out the bottom. And we have a crop picture from 2009 explaining exactly that. The UFO sitting on the ground, rising up. If we look carefully at the thing, we see the motions for the right-hand rule, magnetic and electric fields crossed. We see the same spikes we see in the Dragonfly UFO there. Well, there. We see the same current loops there. Well, there. And we see alternating AC magnetic field, and we see ions coming out the bottom, just like we saw in the previous experiment. So we've already demonstrated this for AC and DC. What we have to do now is see if we can do some sort of trial experiment, 3-phase power, and see if that's possible to imagine we might have 3 or even 9 pistons working all at once. They would be wired up electromagnets as UVW, 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 UVW. And I think it's possible. Let's just do it and find out. Okay, now we have everything wired up and assembled. We come out of the 3-phase power supply through these 3 wires UVW into 3 different wire coils. Above each of them is a little sheet of plastic for insulation. And then one end of wire coil, the tail end, goes into the black lead plate on each case, straight out of the wire coil in series. And the other plates, all 3 of them red, joined together for a standard 3-phase Y configuration wiring. So let's put in some straight pool water and some dye and see what happens. Here we are now at 25 Hertz, which is about 120 volts. You can see water pouring down the right in all of them. Let's put a little dye in so we can watch it. Goes out that way. Goes out that way. And goes out that way. 3-phase magneto-hydrodynamics. Here we are now trying 35 Hertz on the 3-phase frequency supply. And you can see just water streaming from left to right there, and there, and there. This is ordinary pool water. Here we are again now testing 3-phase magneto-hydrodynamics at 35 Hertz, which if 50 Hertz is 240 volts, 35 is about 150. Let's go. 3-phase variable frequency supply, 35 Hertz. You can just see the water streaming from left to right. There. And there. And there. 3-phase magneto-hydrodynamics. Watch the stream motion coming out there. Water's just streaming through very fast. The trouble here is the coils are getting hot, and I had to turn off the device for a little while, let the coils cool off. We're using normal pool water and not diluted pool water to get a little higher current. So it really does work, three-phase magneto-hydrodynamics. Just in case you wish to reproduce this experiment at home, we start from a three-phase variable frequency device. We have 3 wire coils, and one lead goes the U coil, the V coil, and the W coil. Each has about 800 or 1,000 turns of 0.5 millimeter wire. And I've checked to make sure the magnetism is the same, north, up on the same of all of them when the current goes in the same way. Now, the current comes in from three-phase through each coil like that, and then it goes out through this other wire to the lower of 2 aluminum plates in each case, in series. So we have exactly the same voltage, current, and phase going to this lower plate. Then we put some swimming pool water in it, and then on the other side of the plates, all wired up in red like this, to make the classic three-phase Y configuration. All 3 red wires are connected to one another. So we put 3-phase AC power in here. That one fires here. That one fires next, and that one fires next. 0, 120, and 240 degree phase. And each of them makes a flow of current from left to right by magneto-hydrodynamics. And you could imagine these as 3 pistons in a car, all going in series. 1, 2, 3. U, V, W. Anyway, that's very simple and very clear. We'll see what else we can do with it now. Next, we're going to stand all 3 wire coils on their edges, U, V, W, with aluminum plates arranged in pairs, red, black around the inside. And that's sort of like this dragonfly-drone UFO, UVW, 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 except there are 9 of them here with wire loops, 2 per coil, and there are 3 of them here with 2 per coil. So let's turn on the current and see what happens. Okay, now we're turning on the current, 3-phase power. And we can see quite an outflow of current from the tops of these devices, just pouring out, just shooting out there and there and there. The dye's just shooting out the top. Now, to summarize, in this set of experiments, we've tried to simulate the known textbook physics by which this famous dragonfly drone UFO works. Now, I hypothesize that first of all, that there are 9 big electromagnets going around the outside, and that they have 3-phase AC power wired as UVW, UVW, UVW. I've made a little set of normal electromagnets using this ring wired in 3-phase power, and I've got them as red, blue, yellow, red, blue, yellow, red, blue, yellow. Let's turn on the power and just see how 3-phase power works to start with. Now, when we add some power to these 9 electromagnets which are standing on their side that resemble the lower 9 magnets UVW, UVW, UVW of a dragonfly drone UFO, except we have them labeled yellow, red, blue, yellow, red, blue, yellow, red, blue. We'll turn on just 1 hertz of power, 1 time per second AC, and that makes this little magnetic test rotor rotate around in a clockwise fashion. So clearly we're generating a rotating magnetic field. 9 electromagnets on the stator, 2 permanent magnets on the rotor, both pointing in the same direction, north-north. Let's go up now to 2 hertz, twice as fast, and see if it spins twice as fast. So now we're going at 2 hertz, and indeed we see the rotor spins 2 times per second, or exactly 2 of these little sets of 3 coils per second. Now we understand what those 9 electromagnets at the base of the dragonfly drone UFO are doing. They create a rotating magnetic field using three-phase power, and that's why there are 9 of them, not 8 or 10 or some even number. The next question is current. Electric current has to go perpendicular to the magnetic field. And indeed, we can see these current loops, these little loops of wire, 18 of them, 2 per magnet. In order to simulate those, I've put aluminium sheets just unconnected for display on this disc model. Above each electromagnet, one here over the yellow, one here over the red, slightly above it on the inside. Now what happens is if we put three-phase current, AC current, on say that pair and that pair at the same time the magnet is turned on, current will flow back and forth very quickly, and due to the magnet here, both ions will curve downward to create thrust, as the basic piston stroke which we saw earlier. And the way this also works is we need ionized air. The air has to be conductive for this to work. And above the Dragonfly UFO, you have all these 18 of these long curved cable rod shapes, like that. And if you put high AC voltage on those, like 1,000,000 volts AC, they'll ionize the air, say, within a foot of each rod on all sides. That'll flow downward like little streams down the cables, reach these current loops, which will then be conductive air. Air will start flowing as a conductive current over these magnets. And then the next step, with conductive air here, current flowing, due to magneto-hydrodynamics like we saw in our models, the ions will just flow downward like that, the plus ions and the minus ions, and create upward thrust for the UFO as the magnetic field turns on in synchrony with electric current. Now, just to amaze all of you a little bit further, it was actually confirmed for us by the extraterrestrials who fly these devices that this is the correct physics. You remember you see these ring of magnets like that, and 2 streams of ions coming out below as thrust, plus and minus. That was drawn here in crops in 2009 in England. We have a little UFO sitting on the ground. A crop picture was drawn here. The UFO goes up in the air. If we look at the crop picture, we can see a ring of spikes and loops, just like we had here. A ring of spikes and loops, and there are the spikes. And we have north and south magnetic fields alternating for AC power, and 2 streams of ions flow out the bottom, just like I drew here, exactly the same as I drew here. And there's a little image for the right-hand rule here to indicate the magnetic and electric fields are crossed at 90-degree angles to one another. Those are spikes and those are current loops. Here are the spikes and they're the current loops. There's even another crop picture some years earlier in the 1999 where the same place the UFO was sitting on the ground, and they drew this thing next to 1, 2, 3 steps to indicate 3-phase power, and you saw all these little 18 aluminium things collecting current over coils, and you saw ions flowing through it like that. Perhaps less descriptive, but still interesting. So we had 2 of them in exactly the same place. In summary, given all of our efforts, we know pretty well now how this dragonfly drone UFO works using standard Earth textbook physics, and we can build one if we want. The only issue is going to be getting the air ionized enough using these big things here to ionize the air so when it hits these magnets and the current loops, you get enough ionized conductive material to create thrust. It's sort of like an electromagnetic jet engine. However, it won't blow up on you, be very fast and stable, so I think it's worth the effort. So anyone who watches this video, please inform Linda Moulton-Howe, who's an expert on dragonfly drones, and also Elon Musk, who'll do anything to find something to replace rockets, which are very inefficient, and they can blow up when you're sitting on them. And this will not blow up while you're sitting on it. So let's proceed to the stars, use all the knowledge we have, and build this device. Thank you very much. A few other design criteria are very important for building this craft successfully. First, we can't use DC power because then the ionized air molecules would concentrate or build up on one side of the magnet, not the other, over time. So we have to use AC so they remain uniform. If we use one-phase AC power, then we get forces between these magnets because they're all at the same time, and the device would be structurally unstable. So by using three-phase AC power, you get all the U magnets on like a triangle at one time, and while these are off. So they're far enough away from one another so the structure is not unstable mechanically. And then it flips with all the V magnets, all the W magnets, and so on. So it gives you much more structural stability. Secondly, these current loops have to be very close to where the magnets are located. They can't be out in the middle. We have to channel all the ionized air down in these current loops using these devices along the outside and not through the center of the ring. And if for example, you won't get magnetoplasma-dynamics here, it has to be very close to the magnet there, so the magnetic field is stronger. And that's why these current loops are right there. It costs you a fortune energy to ionize the whole ring. You only have the ionized air there. I'm not sure what these spikes do, if they just decorative or whatever, exactly what the how works. In any case, those design criteria are very important when you try to reproduce this craft on your own. I'm still fairly new to UFO physics and don't understand everything, but let me clarify a few points which I may not have gotten right in the previous part of this movie. First, there are probably 18 small spark gaps right near the center of this craft in these regions, short regions where we'll put sparks and air breakdown voltage, and both plus and minus ions will form there. And when those ions are formed, they'll immediately undergo a current sideways, and our magnet here will make them shoot down by the Lorentz force like a piston stroke in a car. So you can think of this like an 18 piston car engine with 18 spark plugs. Now, to get a lot of power, they may discharge a capacitor in various places, like in a Tesla coil with its spark gap. Now, if some of the ions aren't used, this big metallic structure here will let all the excess ions go up in a way, clean the engines out, just like what's something called Jacob's ladder. Carry away extra ions, it's well known. Just get rid of them and clean the system out before we spark again. Now, if the Tesla coil people will look at this and try to combine the spark making ability with magnetoplasma-dynamics, I think we can go to the stars quite quickly. I can't do it by myself. Come on, guys, let's do something practical and make a new spacecraft to replace rockets. Thank you very much.